Teiko Middle School had an incredible basketball team known as the Generation of Miracles. It included 5 talented players, and among them was Kuroko, known as the Phantom Sixth Man. His special move, misdirection, made it impossible for opponents to see his passing, leaving them confused about where the ball had gone. After arriving at Seirin High School, Kuroko met Kagami, a boy with a deep passion for basketball. Together, they became the dynamic duo known as the Light and Shadow, dominating the courts. With the start of a new school year, Seirin High School's club recruitment began again. This new school, only a year old, seemed to attract many freshmen. The upperclassmen were energetically recruiting the first-year students. The basketball club's sophomores, including Shinji, the team mascot, were distributing flyers with fellow sophomores Izuki and Rinosuke. Izuki tried to liven up the mood with a cold joke, but it only cooled the atmosphere. Suddenly, a tall figure approached Shinji. Facing the 2-meter-tall muscular redhead, Shinji felt a bit intimidated. This fiery redhead, one of our main characters, was Kagami Taiga. Kagami wanted to join the basketball club, so Shinji took him to Coach Riko to fill out the registration form. Meanwhile, Riko was discussing the new recruits with club member Hyuga, who seemed indifferent about the recruitment. Riko rolled her eyes at his attitude. When Shinji brought Kagami to fill out the registration form, Riko was immediately impressed by his height and aura. Kagami simply signed his name, wrote down his class and experience, and left, exuding a cool demeanor that left an impression. Kagami had attended middle school in the United States and had excellent physical conditions, making him a promising recruit. Another registration form caught Riko's attention. This new student, named Kuroko Tetsuya, came from Teiko Middle School, the powerhouse that produced the Generation of Miracles. Riko didn't remember him, but his skills were undoubtedly solid. This year's freshmen seemed exceptionally talented. Soon it was time to meet the new members. All basketball club members gathered in the gym, curious about their seemingly cute but slightly underwhelming coach, Riko. The older members smiled knowingly, aware that the newcomers were deceived by Riko's appearance. When everyone had arrived expecting a speech from Coach Riko, she instead asked everyone to remove their shirts. This unexpected request made the young men somewhat embarrassed, but they complied. Riko assessed their physique and accurately pinpointed each person's strengths and weaknesses, impressing the newcomers. Riko approached Kagami, stunned by his outstanding physical stats. She realized she had found a gem, perfect for basketball. This was indeed a treasure find for the team. Just when everyone thought Kagami was the last member to join, Kuroko suddenly appeared in front of Riko, startling her with his low presence. So low that he was almost overlooked. Kuroko casually took off his shirt as routine, leaving Riko speechless. Is this the standard of Teiko Middle School's basketball team? His stats are quite poor. How did Kuroko even make the basketball team, she wondered. That evening, Kagami was practicing alone on the court when Kuroko suddenly showed up, startling him. This kid always appears out of nowhere. It's really scary, Kagami thought. As a member of the Generation of Miracles, Kagami had been eager to challenge Kuroko. Kuroko, feeling the same, stylishly took off his jacket, expecting a duel of experts. However, Kuroko couldn't defend or make shots, performing poorly and leaving Kagami disinterested and walking away. Kuroko's intention was to test Kagami's skills, and from this, an idea formed in his mind. Soon, it was time for a practice match with the seniors. Kagami, representing the freshmen, played aggressively, and the seniors struggled to defend against him. To save face, they had to strategize. Hyuga, Izuki, and another player teamed up to temporarily contain Kagami. During this, Kuroko made his move, using misdirection to continuously pass the ball to his teammates, who performed well. Kagami was drawn to Kuroko's unique style, realizing he wasn't as weak as he seemed. Influenced by Kuroko, Kagami felt even more empowered. Coach Riko, watching the game, was shocked. Perhaps this was Teiko Middle School's brilliance, training players with low presence to mobilize the entire team. The score was quickly tied, and as the game neared its end, the seniors scrambled to score, but couldn't stop Kuroko. Kuroko attempted a shot, but missed slightly, only for Kagami to leap and dunk the ball, reminding Kuroko to aim better next time. Kagami's tone was unexpectedly gentle, possibly because he already considered Kuroko a teammate. The freshman won the game. The next day, Kagami passed by the library, mesmerized by a poster of the Generation of Miracles. Their prowess ignited his competitive desire to defeat them and become the best in Japan. As he snapped back to reality, Kuroko was already standing in front of him, increasingly startling. But that was unimportant to Kagami now. He just wanted the chance to play in games. He approached Hyuga, who told him he needed to become an official club member to play, which might initially only be as a bench player. To become a member, he needed Coach Riko's approval. So he found Riko, who handed him an application form and instructed him to meet her on the rooftop Monday morning to submit it. Monday quickly arrived, and Kagami went to the rooftop, only to find that he wasn't the only one applying for club membership. Kuroko and others were there too. Riko then shocked them with her next statement. She asked the boys to shout their names, classes, and goals on the rooftop. If they failed to achieve their goals, they would have to confess their love to their crushes while naked. The stakes were indeed high. Kagami stepped forward without hesitation, stood on the railing, and loudly declared his goal to defeat the Generation of Miracles and become the best in Japan. The others also proclaimed their goals loudly. When it was Kuroko's turn, he appeared with a megaphone. But before he could speak, the school's disciplinary head arrived on the rooftop and gave them a lecture on proper conduct. Kuroko was bothered that he didn't get to confess and was scolded instead. He decided to fulfill Riko's task in his own way by writing his goal on the playground. "I will make you the best in Japan." Kuroko had chosen not to attend a powerhouse basketball high school because he disagreed philosophically with the other members of the Generation of Miracles, who prioritized individual scores over teamwork. Unlike them, he wanted to build a team that thrived on collective effort. Later, he shared his thoughts with Kagami, acknowledging Kagami's exceptional skills, but noting his lack of maturity to defeat the Generation of Miracles. As Kuroko had always been a shadow-like figure in the team, he decided to become Kagami's shadow. The brighter Kagami shone, the deeper Kuroko's shadow would become. Kuroko believed that together, they would be unstoppable. Kagami was skeptical, but found Kuroko's idea reasonable and agreed to try it out, officially forming the Light and Shadow duo. Their previous practice game was just a warm-up. In a few days, they were scheduled to have another practice match with other schools to prepare for the upcoming national competition. However, an unexpected visitor arrived at their school. Kise Ryota, a former Generation of Miracles player who was also a model. Excited to hear that his school's basketball team would be playing against Seirin, he couldn't wait to scout them out. As soon as he entered the gym, he was surrounded by throngs of female fans. During a break from signing autographs, he greeted Kuroko. He wanted to catch up with Kuroko, but was put off by Kuroko's aloofness. Kagami, learning that Ryota was a member of the Generation of Miracles, eagerly wanted to test his skills against him, but was instantly overwhelmed. Ryota's special move, Copy, allowed him to mimic and amplify an opponent's moves. Kagami was stunned by this, and Ryota, proud of his skill, even tried to recruit Kuroko to his team, but was rejected again. So, it was settled that they would meet in the practice match. The next day, Kuroko and his team arrived early at Ryota's school, Kaijo High School. Kagami seemed off his game, having stayed up all night excited about the match. Upon their arrival at the gym, they were greeted by a greasy middle-aged man, Ryota's coach, who informed Riko that the practice match was merely a training session for his players, and that half a court would suffice for them. After all, other players still needed to practice. Riko was furious, feeling that this arrangement completely underestimated Seirin. They would have to prove themselves on the court. What made it worse was that the uncle coach wasn't letting Ryota play, fearing he would easily defeat Seirin. This arrogance infuriated Riko, who was determined to make a point. As the game started, Kaijo's Kasamatsu initially grabbed the ball, thinking the first score was secured. However, Kuroko intercepted it midway. Kasamatsu quickly chased after him, only to see Kuroko pass the ball behind his back to Kagami, who scored a slam dunk so powerful he pulled down the basketball hoop. Riko hurriedly apologized to the opposing coach, while Kagami exclaimed about the size of the hoop, showing his naive side. Now, they had no choice but to request the full court be opened. For safety, Ryota was finally put into the game. At that moment, a crowd of Ryota's fans gathered at the gym entrance. While Ryota warmly greeted his fans, Kasamatsu kicked him back to reality and reminded him to retaliate against Kagami properly. Ryota responded with a beautiful dunk, earning 2 points. This ignited Kagami's competitive spirit, and both teams started a fierce scoring battle. Kuroko, with his low presence, created many scoring opportunities for his teammates. However, Ryota kept provoking Kagami with his copy skills, setting a fast pace that Seirin struggled to handle. Furthermore, Hyuga noticed that not only Ryota, but also the other 4 players were tough opponents. Although the score was close, the future of the game was uncertain, worrying Riko enough to call a timeout. Back in the resting area, the players were exhausted. Riko re-strategized, but Kuroko mentioned his misdirection technique would stop working after 40 minutes as everyone would gradually adapt to his presence. Riko was furious to hear this. Ryota also shared this point with his teammates. The game resumed, and Riko instructed her team to strengthen their defense, especially against Ryota, with multiple players marking him. However, this left Kasamatsu open, who seized the moment to score a 2-pointer. Kagami grew anxious and engaged in a duel with Ryota. They exchanged moves, but Ryota outmatched him, not only copying Kagami's fadeaway shot, but also blocking him. Ryota taunted Kagami, saying the score gap would only widen and that defeating the Generation of Miracles was a dream. At that moment, Kagami calmed down and realized Ryota's weakness was Kuroko. Ryota couldn't copy Kuroko's low presence, which he acknowledged but didn't care about. However, Ryota didn't realize Kagami was ready to counter. In the following play, Kuroko and Kagami coordinated closely, with Kuroko passing the ball to Kagami, who scored with a 3-step layup. From then on, Kuroko wasn't just Kagami's shadow, but the shadow of the entire team. He passed to Hyuga, who easily scored a 3-pointer, leaving Kasamatsu stunned. Seirin quickly racked up points. Ryota wouldn't sit back and watch. Surprisingly, it was Kuroko who defended him. As Ryota thought he could easily bypass the defense, Kuroko stealthily took the ball from behind, passing it to Kagami, who scored another 2 points for Seirin. Ryota was thrown off balance and, in a moment of panic, pushed Kuroko down. Kuroko's face was bloody, and he had to leave the court. Ryota looked guilty, but Kasamatsu was pleased with the outcome, as the freshman duo had been too dominant. In the second half, the sophomores led the offensive, with the mascot Shinji replacing Kuroko. Kagami and the others focused on defense, coordinating well, especially Hyuga, whose 3-pointers were exceptionally accurate. However, the good times didn't last. Due to exhaustion from the first half, the players began to falter. Without Kuroko controlling the pace, scoring became difficult, and the gap widened again. Riko was desperate, wishing Kuroko was there. At that moment, Kuroko asked to re-enter the game. With Kuroko's passing skills back in play, Hyuga scored a 2-pointer that tied the score. Ryota felt unprecedented pressure, and not willing to give up, his fighting spirit surged. He took a pass from Kasamatsu and dunked, pulling ahead again. Kagami was stunned. Ryota was getting stronger even under pressure. With only 3 minutes left, Hyuga, as captain, rallied everyone to score. The uncle coach also became anxious, urging his team to defend. The intense confrontation led to a tied score, but only 10 seconds remained. Riko realized her players couldn't endure overtime. Defense was no longer an option. They had to attack. Kuroko proposed a plan to Kagami to steal the ball and create a situation where Ryota couldn't mimic him. Kagami successfully stole the ball from Kasamatsu. Ryota immediately tried to defend, but Kuroko and Kagami both showed up. Ryota assumed Kuroko wouldn't shoot and focused all his attention on Kagami. However, Kuroko unexpectedly made a shot, actually a pass in midair to Kagami. Ryota jumped to block, but surprisingly, Kagami stayed in the air longer and scored. Seirin won by 2 points, breaking the uncle's bold claims and causing a major embarrassment. Seirin defeated Kaijo by a 2-point margin. Kuroko reveled in the victory, while Ryota was stunned, experiencing his first ever loss, and tears streamed down his face. Kasamatsu kicked him, reminding him that crying was unbecoming of a man and urging him to regain his spirit and redeem himself later. At lineup time, the team captains shook hands. Despite being just a practice match, it felt significant. After the lineup, Ryota showered by a water pool, and a figure approached him, Shintaro, a former member of the Generation of Miracles. Ryota hoped to catch up, but Shintaro, always blunt, critiqued Ryota's performance as monkey-like. and said his style wouldn't achieve greatness. Shintaro advised Ryota to give up on revenge, claiming only he could defeat Seirin, a bold statement. However, Ryota's attention wasn't on him, but on Kuroko, who was passing by with a bandage on his head. Ryota looked guilty, for Kuroko was one of the few friends he got along with. After leaving Kaijo Academy, Riko first took Kuroko to check his injury. Fortunately, it wasn't serious, and the team was relieved. Hyuga then suggested they have a meal together, as they were all drained from the game. However, after factoring in transportation costs, they only had 21 yen left and were about to head home when a passing truck inspired Riko. A nearby steakhouse was running a promotion, so Riko decided to teach the young owner a lesson by eating enough to get the meal for free. But their eating power quickly diminished. Just when everyone was feeling down, Kagami, known for his huge appetite, stepped up and finished all the remaining steak, likely infuriating the owner. While they were still eating, Kuroko stepped outside for some air and ran into Ryota, who had been waiting. They walked to a nearby basketball court. Meanwhile, Riko and the others came out of the restaurant but couldn't find Kuroko, so their search for him turned into post-dinner exercise, combing the streets. Kagami was drawn to a street basketball game and saw Ryota and Kuroko at the court. Ryota was telling Kuroko about Shintaro, cautioning him to beware of Shintaro's left hand, as his reputation as a top shooter was well earned. Kuroko was outwardly calm but touched inside. Ryota then asked the question he most wanted to know. Why had Kuroko disappeared after middle school? Kuroko admitted he didn't know, but explained that he had begun to doubt and even dislike basketball because of the Generation of Miracles' lack of teamwork and their overshadowing individual brilliances. However, meeting Kagami changed that, reviving his hope through Kagami's passion for basketball. Still, Ryota remained worried that as Kagami's talents grew, his attitude might change, potentially leading to Kuroko facing disbandment again. Kuroko was stunned by this possibility. Just then, Kagami appeared. Having heard the entire conversation, he didn't want to say much, just wanting to leave with Kuroko. Suddenly, a commotion arose from the basketball court. 3 boys who had been playing street basketball were being forcibly driven off by 5 others. Kuroko couldn't stand by, so he stepped in to intimidate the leader. Ryota and Kagami quickly joined him, and the 3 of them took on the 5, deciding the outcome with basketball. Despite never having teamed up with Kagami before, Ryota found their cooperation surprisingly seamless, and soon they had the aggressors down on the ground, crisis averted. Kagami then scolded Kuroko for intervening as they were outnumbered. Ryota, watching the light and shadow duo, felt genuinely happy for Kuroko, thinking perhaps Kagami was truly the right person for him. They agreed to battle again in the finals, and then went their separate ways. Kuroko, knowing Kagami had heard everything, asked for his thoughts. Kagami bluntly said, "You started by saying one person isn't enough, and that we weren't getting along well. But standing in the shadow of the light, isn't that your style of basketball?" With that, Kuroko knew he hadn't misjudged him. The next day at noon, everyone gathered in the gym to discuss the upcoming preliminary matches. The competition was split into 4 regions, with a single defeat resulting in elimination. From 300 high schools, only the top 3 teams would advance to the national competition. The competition was fierce, and Riko took it seriously, scouting the opposing schools early on. Not long after, Riko returned, visibly upset. It turned out that their first opponent, Shinkyo Academy, boasted a formidable foreign player, a 2-meter-tall Senegalese exchange student named Papa. Besides his height advantage, his long limbs made it difficult for others to defend against him. With only 2 weeks left before the preliminaries, the team entered intense preparation mode, focusing especially on Kagami and Kuroko, increasing their training load with daily runs and physical training. Additionally, Riko analyzed the tactical characteristics of their opponents. 2 weeks passed quickly, and the day of the preliminary matches arrived. During the warm-up, Kuroko and the others finally saw the towering Papa, who routinely bumped into doorframes. Tanemura from Shinkyo greeted them with a hint of arrogance. As Papa went to change, he tripped over something and found it was Kuroko. Lifting Kuroko with one hand, he mocked him as a child and scoffed at the Generation of Miracles for being defeated by a team of kids. After putting Kuroko down, he walked away, leaving Kuroko upset by the taunt. To cheer Kuroko up, Kagami was ready as the game began. Papa stole the ball before Kagami could, surprising even Hyuga, who noted that Kagami, typically known for his jumping ability, was bested in height. Then Tanemura passed the ball to Papa, who jumped without any fake moves, completely ignoring Kagami's defense and towering over him. Even Kagami was shocked by his height. Papa became a bit overconfident, while Hyuga, the team's moral support, encouraged everyone to keep pushing. When the opportunity arose, Hyuga prepared for a three-pointer without defense in front, thinking it was a sure score. But unexpectedly, Papa blocked the shot from a standing jump, covering a surprisingly wide area. Furihata and others from Seirin felt Shinkyo was cunning to have such a powerful foreign player, a sentiment overheard by Tanemura, who defended the use of a foreign player as legal and an easy way to score points, dismissing the notion of it being underhanded. Hyuga, annoyed by his smug sense of superiority, retorted, "Everyone has their ace players. We grow ours ourselves. We don't need to import them." Indeed, Kagami and Kuroko were more than capable of handling Papa. By this time, Kagami had effectively countered Papa, causing his shooting accuracy to drop significantly, which puzzled Tanemura. This was where Riko's brilliance shone. She had Rinosuke coach Kagami in defense. Since blocking Papa outright was difficult, they focused on disrupting his shots. Kagami's strategy was to wear down Papa's patience slowly, and it proved effective. Papa became irritable due to the disruptions, and the pressure on him increased. However, Kagami also faced significant pressure since Papa was much taller. Deciding to cut through the confusion, Kagami taunted Papa with a couple of sharp remarks, warning that even kids were not to be trifled with. At that moment, Rinosuke passed the ball close to Papa, who thought he saw a chance. Unexpectedly, Kuroko appeared and redirected the ball to Kagami, who dunked it, shattering all of Papa's illusions. Soon, the ball was back with Tanemura, who attempted to pass it to Papa, but was intercepted by Kuroko, who again assisted Kagami. Kagami dunked again, scoring consecutively, stunning everyone. Because Kuroko's passing skills couldn't be sustained throughout the game, Riko decided to substitute him to let his skills cool down. Other than Papa, the opposing team posed no threat, so as long as Kagami kept a tight defense on Papa, they could prevent the score from widening. In the second half, Kagami's potential was fully unleashed. Despite Papa's efforts, he couldn't break through Kagami's defense. Kagami's jumps reached new heights, shocking Papa. With only 5 minutes left in the game, Shinkyo scored a three-pointer, trailing by 6 points. Riko knew it was time to bring Kuroko back in. Refreshed, Kuroko's passing significantly eased the scoring for his team. Still, Papa was determined to outdo Kagami, but ended up being blocked by him just as the game concluded. Seirin won by 11 points over Shinkyo, with Kuroko not playing and Kagami in peak form, overpowering the opposition. The third match was against the group previously defeated on the basketball court. Perhaps out of respect, Kagami won this game easily. However, Seirin's next formidable opponent was Shintaro's Shutoku High School. The teams met in the gym in the afternoon. Kagami, excited, approached Shintaro to greet him. As Shintaro extended his hand, Kagami wrote his name and number on Shintaro's palm, a unique introduction that Shintaro likely hadn't seen before. Kuroko also came to greet Shintaro, who seemed indifferent and even disdainful, possibly due to Kuroko's sudden disappearance after middle school. Shintaro, confident he could dominate Kuroko, left without another word. In the afternoon, Seirin watched Shutoku's match. Shutoku seemed unpressured, leading by 30 points by the second quarter. Their captain, Otsubo, had strong inside defense, and their perimeter players appeared invincible. Last year, Shutoku had beaten Seirin badly, scoring 3 times Seirin's points, leaving Seirin players mentally shaken for a long time. This year, with Shintaro on their team, Shutoku was even stronger, making this year's game another tough battle. Notably, Shintaro's spot shooting was almost flawless. If he was in the right position, he nearly always scored. The basketball traced improbable parabolas in the air, leaving opponents defenseless. Ultimately, Shutoku achieved an overwhelming victory. Tonight, Seirin has another match against another exceptionally strong team. Besides that, they have to play 2 matches in one day during the semifinals against very strong opponents. Hearing this, Kagami was eager to compete again. The others sighed, but Kuroko and Kagami were both excited and couldn't wait to face the challenge. Somehow, These two had become perfectly in sync, perhaps a sign of their understanding. At this time, Kazunari obtained a game video of Seiho. He invited Shintaro to watch it with him, but Shintaro declined, maintaining his usual arrogance. However, after much persuasion, Kazunari finally got Shintaro to join him in the audio-visual room to watch the video. Meanwhile, Kagami and Kuroko were also studying a game video. Seiho's basketball strategy focused on defense, known as the best in Tokyo. One player, named Tugawa, was particularly tough. Nobody seemed able to get past his defense. Kazunari thought only Shintaro's precise shooting could match up against him. Kuroko remembered Tugawa from a middle school scrimmage, where he had heavily guarded Ryota, leading to a turnover due to ball holding. Not just Kuroko, but Shintaro also remembered Tugawa and admitted he did not want to face him in the upcoming games, as he was too difficult to handle. Kazunari felt regretful, thinking Seirin might not be able to overcome Seiho, likely missing out on the finals. He had hoped for a direct confrontation with Seirin, but now it seemed unlikely. Under Riko's guidance, the rest of the Seirin team also finished watching the game video, but their morale was low because Seiho's defense seemed flawless, leaving no room for attack. With Seiho's match scheduled for the next day, all players participating in the preliminaries were practicing. Observing Seiho's practice, their players were notably shorter, yet two players, Iwamura and Ryuhei, were exceptionally skilled. At that moment, Tugawa approached Kagami, mocking Seirin as a weak team, which made Riko want to punch the disrespectful guy. Fortunately, Iwamura appeared in time, apologized to Hyuga and the others, and Hyuga, taking the challenge, decided to play a match against him. Today, there was no match for Kaijo, so Kasamatsu and Ryota came to watch Seirin play. Possibly influenced by Shintaro, Ryota was also looking at morning horoscopes. Ryota was quite upset since Kuroko is an Aquarius. In the Seiho locker room, Iwamura was strategizing. Everyone knew about Kagami's strength, so he decided to have Tugawa guard him. In the Seirin locker room, morale was low. To boost spirits, Riko announced that if they won this match, she would reward them with a kiss. This statement made the players uncomfortably embarrassed, but Hyuga, trying to spare Riko any embarrassment, forced everyone to accept. This shattered Riko's heart, so she returned to her heroic self, demanding a win to avenge last year's humiliation by Seiho. The match started, and under Seiho's tight defense, Seirin failed to score in the first half of the first quarter, while Seiho had already scored 12 points. This significant score difference was disheartening, even shocking Ryota. Tugawa was guarding Kagami very tightly. The immense pressure prevented Kagami from getting into the game. Izuki snatched the ball from Kagami, attempting a direct layup, only to be blocked by Iwamura. Watching this, Kasamatsu analyzed that Seirin usually reacts rather than initiates, and Kagami is typically the first to find his rhythm. However, now even Kagami wasn't in form, making his performance crucial. That's all for today's episode. See you in the next one.